Dear Diary, hello old friend. I know I haven't written much these last few weeks. I haven't done much, so there hasn't really been anything noteworthy to share or to process. It's been hard, but it does appear that things may be looking up. Today was a better day. It was simple, easy. I woke up early, face basked in the yellow rays of the cozy sun. I felt content and a rather bit thirsty. After slipping out of bed, I slid into my soft slippers and padded over to the kitchen cupboard. I sifted through the shelves to search for my reserve of rose petals. Lately, I've been starting each morning with a piping pot of rose tea. The floral aroma is one of the few pleasures that makes getting out of bed worth it. Regrettably, however, I had used up the last of my petals yesterday. My heart sunk in my chest, and I pondered simply returning to bed to, again, sleep the day away. Though, the craving to quench my thirst, it only persisted. Eventually, I sighed and decided to slip into my boots and pulled over my jacket. I recalled that dear Flurry, who shares as strong an appreciation for rose tea as I, had taken the responsibility upon herself and had planted a community rose garden beside the western shore. As I mentioned in previous entries, she and I have shared many conversations about starting a garden together. I suppose she must have grown tired of my constant weaseling out and had taken the initiative to get it going herself. She insisted that the garden was intended for all of us Atlantica residents to use, so I decided to see if any rosebuds may have bloomed a bit early this year. The morning air felt crisp. It was more chilly than the indoor sun rays had led me to believe. I trudged with slow, frigid steps through the freshly fallen snow. Each step I took sounded like crunched, compressing powder underfoot. The Cosmo garden around my house had surprisingly grown quite expansive in the absence of my care. Cosmos were poking through the white fluffs of snow like little balls of suns sewn together into a vast blanket. They were bright, and the sight of them resisting through the winter cold brought a smile to my face. The world had felt oddly hypocritical. From the red and yellow cosmos, a warmth seemed to pour into the surrounding area as their vibrant colors sparkled in the sunlight. Yet, their outpour of colored warmth intermingled oddly with the glacial-like wintry breeze. The combination rattled my brain for a moment as I processed both nature's persistence and nature's wrath. Alvera glanced over as I passed by. She wore an expression of kind familiarity. I flicked my hand in a tight, awkward wave. In my mind, I thought that I must have appeared as quite the mess to behold. Yet Alvera, she just smiled at me and offered a gentle wave back. It really has been far too long since I last spoke to, or even really interacted with any of the other island residents. Struggles are struggles, sure, though I seem to have temporarily forgotten the unity of feeling a part of a kindred-spirited community. Rhymes. Passing through the residential district, I crossed the old rickety bridge towards the western side of the island. Wildflowers stretched northward along the coast, as far as my eyes could see. Their buds were mostly still dormant, not a promising sign for what was awaiting me at Flurry's rose garden, but I thought that since I'd already gone all that way, I might as well finish my stroll. When I had arrived at the rose garden, a quick scan confirmed that no buds were in bloom. I knew my quest had been a long shot. I suppose it's still far too early in the year, but I had felt hopeful at the time. It was nice. I hung back at the fence and sighed. It took me a moment, but I eventually came to accept that I would not be brewing another pot of rose tea until spring at least. An image of home crept into my mind, and I pondered returning, but the day was much too lovely to waste. I turned, feet shuffling through the snow, and headed towards the sandy shore. The gentle, rhythmic push and pull of the ocean waves mollified my mind, allowing my thoughts to drift skyward. My thoughts morphed into a memory of last fall. Cole had the good sense to drag me out of the house for a nature hike up on the northeastern mountain. There, we found a few rose plants that had grown along the cliffside. They bore vibrant blooms like flushed cheeks deep into their off-season. I chuckled, thinking that perhaps they would surprise me once again with another pleasant miracle. Steps newly energized and enthusiastic, I scurried eastward along the southern shore and hopped across the Stepping Stone River. From there, I headed inland towards the northern mountains. The overgrown bell orchard engulfed me, but the decadent sounds of the rustling leaves and laughing wind brought a grin upon my face. Through the last few rows of bell trees, the mountain path came into view. I stood at the edge of the orchard and glanced up at the simple mountain before me. I have walked that mountain path countless times while living here, but today is when I really looked at the mountain. Overgrown with trees and blanketed by weeds and the occasional mums, it just looked like outstretched arms seeking something to embrace. It felt light, like I could have just floated up the path. Actually, thinking back, perhaps I did. I don't quite recall, but I distinctly remember the wind nipping at my nose and the blush that rushed to my cheeks as I climbed the last few steps of the path. I exhaled as I stood at the mountain's edge, overlooking the sea, and my breath merged with the world around me. I thought that I might become one with the wind, to be of nature. I am a part of this world. I exist. At that moment atop the mountain, I knew this to be true. The healing powers of nature never cease to astound me. Sure, I know that moments are fleeting, incapable of lasting forever, but dare I say, I had never felt more alive, more real. A life in bed with the windows drawn and piping tea on the table isn't much of a life at all. It makes for a decent moment, but a single moment relived unendingly, it's not a life. It's a memory. I've lived a memory for weeks, and yet all it took to pull me back into the realm of reality was a quest for my favorite tea. Oh dear, silly me. I've appeared to have lost myself, reliving that moment. Alas, as I recall and steer us back on track. I stood at the mountain's top cliffside, and there I found the rose bushes. They were bare, no petals to be plucked. Yet, even so, I didn't feel sad or let down. No, instead, I felt rejuvenated, like I could breathe and that I was worthy of each breath. I spent the rest of the afternoon and part of the early evening basking as warm in the winter sun as one could be. The waves crashed against the rocky base of the mountain, and they sang a tune in harmony with the orchestra of life living all across the island. Afterward, I returned here, home, and now I'm sitting by the fireplace and writing the entry. Today was a decent day. I'm honestly a little surprised by how relieved I am that everything unraveled in the manner in which it did. I believe that tomorrow I shall challenge myself to accomplish another one task. The cosmos need taming, so I suppose I should tend to that. I do not know when I had lost the feeling of living, but now that I'm relearning it, I will work ever harder to not allow it to slip through my fingers again. Life, it can be decent. It is decent. It's the little things. Always the little things. Yours, Alvin.